so keen.
What is your favorite 90s jam?
My favorite 90s jam. That's actually it's a harder one. Like a 90s like pop or like rock jam or like
It doesn't
anything
matter.
at all.
That doesn't matter.
Anything.
Like go to, you're at the party, you have to turn on a 90s song, like what would you pick?
I don't know about the party, and again, this is a super hokey song, but I love, what is that, Johnny Cash and the U2 song, The Wanderer. I have a weird, like, I love that song.
That's a good song.
So it's like Johnny Cash's one shot at like 90s, you know, kind of like ambient trip hop influence stuff.
Yeah.
And it's one of the only U2 things that I can really, you know, get into.
Yeah, that's a good song. Best local show you've been to recently?
Young Valley. I was there on Friday night. They were here to work. They were working on a record at Dialback, so they played at Ajax. And Oxford music is kind of slow, but it was packed and it was awesome. And like I don't know if y'all are familiar with Young Valley, but they're just like super, super good, like really tight, really fun, like country rock music. They did an interview.
They were our first interview. Yeah.
Really, really awesome band.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
One of my favorite bands here. Them and Nauseans are like those are my go-to Mississippi bands.
Do you have a favorite Young Valley song?
I Hope It Kills You. It was on that Dialback sampler, and that song, like I'll find a song and listen to it like 12 times in a row until I get tired of it. And that song, like I listened to it for like a whole drive one day, and
Yeah.
they're all really great musicians, and they're really, really good at what they do.
What hobbies or activities that you do outside of music influence your sound? You know, sort of just like environmental factors or things that you like to do that come into play when it comes time to make music.
I really like doing like visual art. I've not done much painting, but I draw a lot. I paint sometimes. I do collage, but even that is kind of factored into the music because like before I have an album, I'm thinking about packaging and how the next record's going to come out and what the stage is going to look like, and so that's kind of the second outlet outside of music, but still like it all kind of feeds back into what I'm doing musically. And a lot of the time what I'm inspired to do visually, like I'll see something that inspires me visually and it kind of gives me an idea for music as well. Like it's very closely linked. And I've had song ideas come up from seeing like a picture or like a series of drawings or whatever, be like I want to make something like that, and then some music that kind of mirrors that to fit with it, you know. There are a few different things, but they all kind of filter back into music, and that's what I'm always working on, is trying to figure out like what's going to happen next, like what's the next release going to be, what format, what's the artwork going to be like, all that. So
do you do your own album artwork, or do you hire people to do it?
It depends. The first few didn't have like formal artwork because I was just making them on CDs and drawing on them and getting them out in Corinth, and or selling them at shows or whatever when I was 17 or 18. And so when I first got on Bandcamp, I was just making these really cheesy like MS Paint things and putting them up as the album covers. But starting with The Human Race, which was like my fifth release, it was an EP back in 2013. That had like a whole hand-drawn cover and printed. And since then, I've either done all of my own artwork, or I've never used like a dedicated like artwork, third party at all. I'll go to like Bumps in the Night. The cover of that was from some guy I found on Reddit had taken a picture of like a construction site he was working in, and it was this creepy mannequin. And I was like, can I have this picture? Like, I could use it as an album art. Here Asleep was all stuff from public domain, like old book illustrations, and so I've never had like a third-party artist. I like the idea of things that are DIY but still well-made, like not DIY for the sake of being just kind of cheap or tossed together, but DIY in terms of it's a presentation.
Well, like I wanted to know, like if you do it like you said, maybe to save costs, or if you do it because you which is fine. I mean, some people might do that, but if you participate in it in that way because you want to, you have an entire vision. It's not just the songs; it's how you present it to people.
It's a little bit of both. When it first started, it was costs because I could just go and spend $20 on CDRs and cases, but it started out as a cost thing. And it's still a big part of it, but it also became so much. I mean, I've been doing this for 8 years, and it's become so much of what I've been doing is like these, hand-drawn flyers and handmade CD cases and things like that. And I mean, everything down to stickers. Like the stickers that I've done in the past have all been made by hand, you know, and then like sealed by hand, all that. And so it's definitely both. It's price, and it's also having a full control over it and knowing exactly how everything is done. And again, I mean, I like things that are handmade, and I feel like people that come to the merch table and things also like the like I said, the very elementary school kind of craft of it.
Yeah, and it's a labor of love.
Absolutely.
What have you been listening to lately?
A lot. I've been revisiting all the Jay Dilla stuff lately, especially Donuts and Rough Draft EP and Dillatronic, which they released a couple years ago. I've been kind of going back through that again. I always listen to a lot of 60s side pop and stuff, you know, like the Beach Boys, like late 60s stuff. Of course, the Beatles. Everybody either loves them or hates them, but I'm an unabashed Beatles fan. And I mean, a few different things. A lot of Elephant Six stuff too, like Elephant Six, that whole collective. You know, the Olivia Tremor Control and Circulatory System. Like, I've not found anything new lately, but I've been just kind of diving back into these things that I've loved a long time, and those influences are definitely kind of working their way into what I'm currently working on.
What's your favorite Beatles record?
Magical Mystery Tour. I don't even know if it counts as a record. It's like an EP and some singles, but definitely
Doesn't
Magical
matter.
Mystery Tour.
Yeah, okay, cool. How would you describe your music? Like, if you had to put yourself into a genre, or if you could create your own genre, like, how would you describe your sound?
I've always said like experimental pop, because whether I'm playing with like an acoustic guitar, a sampler, you know, synths or whatever, I'm a big fan of just kind of the pop song form itself, and making something that's like, you know, generally pretty short and digestible and kind of quick, but at the same time, I love kind of like older experimental or like avant-garde music, and the idea of, you know, loops or things that don't really fit into songs, and, you know, experimenting with different sounds and different ideas, and even like different methods of composition, kind of taking, you know, sometimes like involuntary composition, I guess, like that's something that really interests me. The idea of like kind of, at least for part of it, taking myself out of it and finding ways to come up with different melodies, like you know, growing up and playing music in church, or playing music in the performance group I was in at Northeast, and finding out that you could actually, you know, communicate music with numbers. And so doing things like taking my friends' phone numbers from when we were kids, and, you know, like making a melody and then harmonizing around that, like that's a
So can you tell me a little bit about like your songwriting process, like how that works for you?
It generally all starts with some kind of experimentation or another, whether it's making a beat, or I recently got a contact mic, so I've just been making, you know, getting little sounds of everything. And, you know, I'll make either a drum loop, or I'll come up with a chord progression, or, like I said, kind of, you know, experimental composition things, like, you know, again, using phone numbers or addresses, or, you know, even dropping coins on paper that have numbers written, you know, just starting with a melody or a chord progression that happens by accident, or that I kind of take myself out of, and then if something works, I can really sit down and make it happen, and make it become a thing.
Do you think that the music or the lyrics take the forefront in your songs?
In the writing process, definitely the music, and then the lyrics come later. Like, I'll generally have placeholder lyrics, and they're almost always, you know, the same kinds of words and things, and then I'll figure out what I want it to be about. But the music is always the main focus. So, like, even when I'm writing lyrics, I care about the lyrics, but I care more about the sound of the words and the way it kind of, you know, fits rhythmically and phonetically and all that. Like, I want it to be audibly pleasing more than anything.
When did you know that you wanted to be a musician?
I think I was probably in 4th grade. My whole like young life, I always like wanted to do something that was kind of showy. Like, when I was a really little kid, I wanted to be like an actor or something. And then I started playing guitar a little bit around the 4th grade, and as awful and cheesy as this sounds, I saw School of Rock and just wanted to start a band. And it just kind of happened from there. Like, I learned more and more things, and learned how to play more and more things, and the influences changed, and I met more people, and it just kind of, it grew very organically. Like, it just went from me being in, you know, 4th grade and wanting to make music, and then by the time like my freshman year of high school rolled around, I had a couple shows and I was working on writing things and recording around home, and it's just gotten busier every year since the 4th grade.
So you said that you had some experience in church before, you got your start?
Yes. And I played in the youth band, and just mostly electric guitar. And oddly enough, there was a period of about 2 months that the worship band at our youth group consisted of me and Cody Rogers from This Now and Holy Ghost. Like, he would play guitar and harmonica, and I would play like keyboard and sometimes some percussion. And
your church band had harmonica? That is so
for about 2 months.
Tell me about the first instrument you ever got.
As a kid, I had one of those Casio SK1s, the sampler, the little sampling keyboards, and I don't know where that is now. And they're generally too high on eBay to get another one. But my dad got this cheap eBay acoustic guitar that I'm pretty sure is supposed to be nylon string, but it just had cheap steel strings and it sounded really bad. And I learned how to play a few things on that. And then as I got older, when I got older, probably in the 7th grade, my parents, as a gift, got me this acoustic guitar, this Rogue acoustic guitar that by most standards is pretty cheap, but I still record with it. Like, I like the sound of it, and that was the guitar that I kind of came to on. And it's like I said, it's still a big part of what I'm doing. Like, it shows up on most records layered in somewhere, just because it's just boxy and kind of off sounding.
Yeah. So I want to hear more about your live shows, because I saw you play a couple of months ago, and I remember it being very intimate. That I know it was a small space, but we were all kind of just crowded around you, and you were sitting on the floor. I think we all sat on the floor too with you, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And it was very intimate. Do you work towards that, or is that just something that happens organically?
A lot of time it depends on what I'm traveling behind and what I'm promoting at the time. But that was a couple weeks before Here to Sleep came out, which is mostly acoustic and a few samples and drones and things. So promoting that record, and when I was preparing to release it, it was all just guitar and samples, and it was very minimal. And the first few shows, I thought it would be cool to sit on the floor, because a guy who's kind of a hero of mine, and we toured together and we made music together, named Drew Danbury. When we toured, he was all about sitting on the floor, or all about kind of sitting on the edge of the stage. And I really liked the way that people responded to it. Like, they would, generally sit down, or just kind of brought. And so when I was promoting that record initially, I really liked doing that. And plus, it was easier to control everything that I was using. And that ended pretty quickly, mostly because it just hurt to sit that long. On that tour that followed that record, I had the same equipment, but I was standing, and I'd rework some things. But for that time, it was more of a stylistic choice with the record and the music that was coming out on that record than it was anything. I just wanted it to be very again, like homemade feeling, and for there to be no real kind of boundary there. Mostly though, I think my live show, it's always kind of based on where I am and what I'm wanting to experiment with and what I'm feeling most at home with at that particular time.
So can you walk me through some of your releases, like kind of like a timeline?
Absolutely. I was in this kind of dance rock kind of band when I was in high school, and while we were working on our album, I released my first EP, Happy Island, around the same time. I had done a project the year before that I wrote and recorded a new song every day in November, and so I had a couple songs from that, and a couple songs that I've been playing live, and put out this record in 2011. And it just kind of started steadily moving from there. I did a Christmas album that year that I'm still proud of. It's got some really weird little things on it, but I love it. And
is it like actual Christmas songs?
Oh yeah, it's I think 5 tracks, and 2 or 3 of them are traditionals, and then 2 are originals. Cool. And it's very indicative of what I was listening to at the time. Like, there's this one song that I look back at it now, production wise, it's kind of weird, but I was totally like going for like an OK Computer kind of thing. And so I don't think that's what it sounds like, but that's always what I hear when I listen. I'm like, I just hear me at 17 just trying to make OK Computer. But then there was in Lo-Fi, which was under a different name, President Hotel, that I played some shows with the band, and that was when I got into, Chill Wave had come out like a couple years before, and I was all about trying to make something kind of like lo-fi and electronic. And then my senior year of high school, when I graduated, I released a self-titled, which was just a short EP. That's actually where I met Curtis, Artiflex. We played a show together. And then that's when I think things actually kind of like came to be, because in 2013 I released an album called The Human Race, like or a 6-track EP that was just, I'd always kind of experimented with things and household objects and found sounds and all that, but that was when I really just went overboard. Like I found the notebook the other day and it had, you know, probably 200 items that were listed that were, you know, I would write at the beginning of the day, and then when I got home I would either record the sound or find the sound. And it was basically like, what can I fit into these songs? Like how many layers of things? And it definitely wasn't like a well thought out production, but that's the first record that I feel like is, that I'm really, really proud of, because it was when I realized that you could experiment with anything with samples, and you could record yourself playing and cut it up and turn it into other things. And after that came the dance record, Summer Anthems for the Digital Age. The next year was Young Whispers, which is like it's pretty much just like a pop record, like and not much more than, you know, there's some moments of like sound collage on it or things like that, but it's just a pretty straightforward pop album. That winter, Bumps in the Night came out, which was like the EP, the Halloween themed EP. Where Nobody Knows came in September 2015, and that's still the one I'm probably the proudest of as a full record. And then This March was Here Asleep, and that's when I played in Cleveland, was promoting, you know, getting ready to promote that record. So it's been 10 records and a lot of singles and collaborations and all that, but I don't realize how much it's been until I try to like draw it out. Like I've been doing it, you know, I've been releasing records since my like 10th or 11th grade. 11th grade year was when I put out my first record, and it's just, it's weird.
What is your favorite medium to release on?
In terms of, I guess, viability, I like digital, but I'm a big fan of physical music. I collect a lot, you know, things across, you know, vinyl, tape, CD. I've gotten where I really like tapes because of the artwork capabilities. You know, you can do so much of artwork on tapes you can't do with CDs.
Do you have any upcoming projects or things you just want to tell us about?
I've got a couple different ideas, several songs that are being recorded. I'm either going to do, whichever one finishes first, I want to do a 30-minute long album coming up, and I want side A of the tape to be the album and side B to be the album in reverse, which is an idea that my roommate Dylan gave me with the last one that just never panned out. But I want to do that, and I've also been looking at I found somebody that'll cut vinyl for really cheap. Like rather than wave cuts, actually doing like stereo, like cutting into vinyl. And I'm thinking about doing a series of 10-inch EPs that will be about 20 minutes each, and doing like 3 10-inch EPs and then releasing all of them as a full album on tape, like a trilogy. But I generally, I'll get an idea and then lose it and decide to work on something else. So right now, there's a trilogy, there's a 30-minute long album, and there are a couple other things that are just there brewing, and I don't know what'll happen next. But objects of industry are melting. In the heat of the mid-November sun, sometimes I wish I did it to all that's looking. I just wish I could listen to someone. I wrote a little note to you, recounting everything I did and didn't the show. So here's my little note of thanks, overjotted alphabets, and knowing some days I could swim directly to the setting sun. All your objects of industry are so keen, like my clothes in the January rain. Sometimes I wish that the problem could be more simple. Sometimes I wish it were easy to pin the blame. So here's my little note of thanks, obsessed with my own mistakes, and knowing some days I could swim directly to the setting sun. All your objects of industry are tattered, casting lots at the feet of a dying king. He'll wake up and go walking 3 days later. He'll go walking and find me here asleep. When I make it to the kingdom, I'm gonna have blood on my hands.